and when rapid speed down to 2500.
Point wherever you reduce speed to 180.
Black box.
I think we're actually recording now, right? So we're on, and they. This is how we start our podcast.
I feel like we're always on, right?
Yeah, we're just right. We're doing it. So hey, welcome to KP's Black Box. Today I have the honor to have a great human being that we've never really got a chance to hook up over the years, Mr. Zack Miller. Zack, we're going to talk with him today about entrepreneurship, book writing, training, like we were just talking about then. So, we're going to cover the gamut today, Zack. So, but by the way, last name Miller, pretty good name. I let a Miller marry my daughter, so I have a special place in my heart for Millers.
I don't know. I have done zero research on Miller, so hopefully we're okay.
There's a bazillion of you.
Yeah, terrible last name.
Yeah,
there's too many of us.
Yeah,
it's not.
Got to thin the herd, huh?
Yeah, it's no anomalies in the in that last name.
What did you say, Jordan?
I said especially in Tidewater.
Especially in Oh yeah, they're Are you Mennonite?
No.
There's a lot of Mennonite Millers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, over in Great Bridge. Yeah. Huh. So I was expecting you to come in this morning and have a thing on your, not a yarmulke, but a.
Which we are not Mennonite either.
Yeah, you're not.
No.
What are the things the ladies wear on their head?
It's a veil, I think.
It's called a veil.
I think so, because it's just a head covering.
Doesn't cover anything, but the bun.
Well, it's a head covering, so like.
Not that matters. See, we're already off on a rabbit trail here.
There you go.
That'd be great for news, right? So in today's news, and you're like, what are we talking about now? So
it would be a headline, yeah. Right? Because it's different. That would get people to click.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, yeah, we were just talking about that. You were a journalism major at West Virginia University.
Yeah.
So journalism in West Virginia, I mean, is that like Dr. Seuss books? What do you read in journalism?
I pretty much. So the reason I went there was primarily because it was the closest journalism school to where I grew up, which is Northern Virginia, D.C. area.
Okay.
And the reason I went there is because there's not a lot of journalism schools in the country, period. And so this is where most people don't understand this is there's a lot of communication schools that might have some sort of emphasis, but they're not actually journalism schools. So there's maybe 30 or 40, and this is 2002 when I was researching this. At the time, there was none in Virginia. There was no journalism school in the state of Virginia. Maybe there is now. I don't know. Maybe JMU has one, right?
Yeah.
So I went there, went to journalism school, decided that I wanted to get into sports broadcasting, was a sports anchor there.
Yeah.
And that was cool. I mean, I always loved sports, so I thought that would be interesting. And then you get out of college and you realize that you have to get a job, I guess. And so you start applying to, 10 jobs a day. I don't know how many I was doing, but I was a swim coach of like a local swim team, and I was working at my dad's PR firm, mixing paint at Home Depot, doing swim lessons, and applying to a job all at the same time. Eventually got the job. All right, so I applied to a bunch of jobs, and then applied here, and this is a top 50 market, so they look at media markets, which is like the size of the population of an area. And so like your small towns would be like a Cheyenne, Wyoming is probably like market 100, maybe even smaller. There's 205 or so markets. DC is probably 8 or 9. And applied here, and just so happened that a guy who had ties to Morgantown, which is where West Virginia is, was like, hey, today might be your lucky day. Can you meet me tomorrow? I was like, yeah, sure. I'll be there. So I drove 3 hours. He interviewed me, looked at my resume tape, basically butchered it. It was like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. But then like a week later, offered me a job. And I was like, okay, I'll take it. And so I was a photographer there for a little while with the idea that if I could get into a top 50 market, I could get on air even if I take a backseat job first.
Wait a minute. You were a photographer, but journalism. So when I think of journalism, like I'm thinking, okay, you're finding the story in the story.
Yes, you're learning all those things. So I did all of that in journalism. And then my theory was, because I don't want to have 6 jobs to get to a big market, I'm going to try to do a slightly different job, being like a videographer, editor, still going out on all the stories, and then convince whoever the person is in charge there to put me on air to do sports reporting, whatever. And that's why I took that job, so I didn't have to. So I have like friends who had to go through like 5 or 6 different cities to get to the market that they wanted to.
Yeah.
And Norfolk, Virginia Beach wasn't the area that I wanted to, and I don't necessarily know where that area was. I just didn't want to take 10 years to get there.
Right.
So that's kind of how I jumped into that.
Wow.
And then I realized this isn't what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And got out of it.
Well, we jumped right into it, and I'm sure I feel the heat from Jordan and Noah over there going.
You feel that too?
You didn't do your toast yet. So, as you know, you did a little research on me. We start a podcast off with saluting our veterans and our active duty military and their families. And you wore a cool shirt today, not your average operator, which is pretty sweet. I like that. And then I like the saying on the back. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
Yeah, I have no idea what the back says. I don't remember, but
We'll turn around. We'll let that camera
see
it. But let's grab the old Johnny here. And we were talking about the levels of Johnny. This is the only Johnny I really like to drink, Mr. Walker, is your Blue Label. Mm-hmm. And I've been trying to get Johnny Walker to I'm not asking for any money from him. I'm just like, hey, when that gets low, will you send me another bottle to salute our military?
Do you just saying? So I've heard you say this. Are you just saying it, or are you actually like proactively like reaching out to Sir Johnny too?
I think we've asked them twice, right?
And any response back?
We're too small, so
They have some hurdles and standards in which they
we don't
respond
meet
to. We're
their
not quite there yet,
criterion,
but we
their standard
understand.
yet.
Did you ask what the number is that you need?
It's
It's
probably
laid out.
more
I
than
don't know off the top.
my 50-some folks who are listening every week. But we're in there. You get small places. You got to.
Well, if those 50 people are all avid Johnny Walker Blue Label drinkers, then
we should get them to.
it's a whole game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can educate me today and our audience. I'd love to chat with you about that. 'Cause, I know finance, but when it comes to this marketing stuff, I kind of suck at it. So.
It's all about compounding. So,
Well, we'll work on that then.
cheers.
Cheers to our friends in the nations. Go ahead, give it a shot. A lot better than green, huh?
Well, I don't remember the green from before.
You took the second shot, so that's impressive.
Did you think I wasn't?
Well, I was a little worried for
There's
you.
the burn. So I think the last time I had Johnny Walker, period.
But isn't that smooth?
I mean, I don't drink a lot of liquor.
For gasoline, it's
Okay,
smooth,
okay.
right? Yeah. So.
The last time I think I drank Johnny Walker was on like a school visit with a friend when I was 20.
Wow.
All right, 21.
And you're
20.
You're 30, 21, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a young lady on the show who, as we're in the middle of the interview, we're doing a toast, and she says she's 20, and I'm like, oh God. And I'm supporting and promoting Johnny Walker, and I'm like, okay, how old are you again? And she, 21, yeah. So
37.
37, I think, qualifies for drinking hard liquor. So
Yeah, and I think the last time I drank that, I remember waking up in a weird position on some random guy's floor. So.
do we even want to go there?
I don't really remember it, so no.
Yeah. Well,
That's college.
We'll wake you up and we'll show you the film of what took place today.
It's live on YouTube. Right?
There you go. So, what's interesting, I was just listening to the beginning of your story, and you sound like an entrepreneur to me. I mean, I interview a lot of entrepreneurs, both on camera and then in my practice, my financial practice.
Yep.
And what I've found to be true about most entrepreneurs is most of them don't know what they want to be when they grow up. They're doing lots of stuff, and they will tell you they get lucky by landing something. But what I find as we start peeling back the lucky onion, it really is a lot of grinding, a lot of hard work, a lot of intestinal fortitude. What do you think? You've interviewed a lot of people at Hatch in your incubator over in Norfolk. What do you see as a common thread in success?
I think timing is important. I think that luck is somewhat important, but I think that there's some strategy behind that, right? Like if you say I'm going to create the internet and it's June 25th, 2021, I mean, you're a little late to the game, right? So that's where the timing and luck gets there. But I'm a big believer that you need to raise your hand a lot. And even if those other things didn't work, like my first entrepreneurial endeavor was when I mowed lawns at 10 years old. I knocked on a lot of doors.
Yeah.
I looked at a lawn that said, and thought to myself, oh, that lawn looks like it needs to be mowed. Okay, if I want to do that, it's as easy as knocking on that person's door and saying, hey, will you give me $20?
Yeah.
Right? So taking that concept over the last, 27 years, you're just kind of compounding those learning nuggets and putting them together. I mean, I think people is pretty important, the right person, right? So
what happened to the 10-year-old when you got your first no?
I don't remember.
Yeah, you just blocked that out, right? Because you're like, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think no is like irrelevant, really. It's understanding the no, understanding the yes, but like it's okay. Like, do you really like that girl? She told you no. Are you gonna just let her say no? Or are you gonna convince her?
Did you marry her?
Yeah, my wife told me no several times at first.
My wife wouldn't hold my hand when we first started dating.
Oh, really? It took me
We
3
both
months.
we had a bad breakup on both of us.
Yeah.
And so it was like, it was perception in the community. And I respected that.
Sure.
I didn't tell her that at the time. I was like, you really won't hold my hand out here? And, as we'd walk out of her, she ran famous Uncle Al's.
Okay.
Like the 3 stores, the one on Shore Drive, the one in Chesapeake, worked for Al Stein for years. Super guy.
Cool.
Great hot dogs, by
Yeah,
the
yeah.
way. Little plug for them.
Are you a Granby?
Al
What kind of
sent
dog
us
are you?
some, just straight up mustard onions chili.
So is that a Granby dog? Or is that a beach dog?
I don't know. I didn't know they had names.
Yeah.
Just their
At least the
original
ones I've
name.
been to.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I
old
want a Granby. I want a beach dog. I want a
Yeah.
whatever. What'd you say? Onions, mustard, chili?
mustard onions chili. Yeah.
Interesting.
It's the traditional hot dog with a boar's head weenie in it. Got to be a boar's head.
Is that what they normally have?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the weenie does matter, right? I mean, that's I think the people matter in business.
Yeah.
Right? It's this is ridiculous to say, but someone can walk in, you talk to them a couple minutes, and you realize, like, okay, they have a lot better chance of succeeding than others. And I think it's just. Actually, I was doing an episode with my buddy. We started the show called Fervent 4 last year during COVID.
What is it again?
Fervent 4. So it's based
Fervent
off.
4.
Yeah. So it's based off of the concept that only 4% of businesses ever reach the annual $1 million mark. So it's like, I forget what the word fervent means,
You made it.
but the 4 is based on the 4%.
Yeah.
And I forgot what we were going with this. The Johnny Walker's already talking.
That's why we do it.
Oh, so we were talking about people just in general, and it's
Yeah.
like he was at a pitch competition recently, so I guess those have started coming back up. I used to run one called Start Norfolk on my own, and you hear these ideas, and I said, it's. I don't think that a business owner has to be gregarious, but in a pitch competition or in a place where they are the performer, they need to be the best performer that they can be, right? So like right now I'm on a performance stage.
Mm-hmm.
If I sit here and I talk like this and I just go BlackBox Anomaly, how to finally stand, I'm just like reading things,
Yeah.
right? Like as I'm looking at
Yeah.
the table, people in the crowd are gonna get out their
They get
phone.
the energy
They're
from
gonna,
that,
yeah. Or if you're just reading what your slide deck says, like there's things that you can do to maximize those performances. And the best performances and the best performers typically can get a crowd super excited about them. And even if the idea sucks, people will get behind that. And so I'm a firm believer that the loudest idea, the loudest business is typically the most successful, because they're willing to get out in front of the brand. And if you look at, and they're being anomalies, if you really think about it, if you look at the most explosive companies, the most exciting companies, the ones that people will shout from the rooftops about, guess what? Like, they're really loud companies. And it doesn't mean they have the best product, the best service, best actual company.
So what do you think about, like, I don't know if you ever read Steve Jobs' bibliography or biography.
The really thick one?
Journalism. Yeah, the really thick
I
one.
haven't. I own it. It's one of those books
Yeah.
that you own, but you don't read.
Yeah, 10 pages a day. Noah's working through this right now in this little workout routine. that
So he's
doing.
on. Oh, he's doing.
75 hard. Yeah. And so he's got to read 10 pages a day,
Yeah.
which I think is great because that's 3,000 pages a year, 3,500 pages a year. And that's
How many days is he on that?
You're six,
Oh, it's almost done.
almost done.
You like taking that picture every day?
Yeah. I eat pizza in front of him, Chick-fil-A, drink Johnny Walker. I'm like the devil, like
Well,
trying to get him to break, and he hasn't broke.
So I'm familiar
Staying
with.
hard.
I'm familiar with that program. Never done it, but like, you could have just picked the diet that was like eat pizza every day.
That's me. I mean, look at me.
I think you could be fine. I think people can like eat certain foods and be fine.
You know, I was hard when I was.
I'm not a
Marine.
dietitian, obviously.
I've had a dietitian on the show, and I was like, "Can you do something for me that involves Chunky Monkey, like Ben and Jerry's? Like that's
Yeah.
my vice." And then some Marco's pepperoni magnifico, I think it's called. But anyways, I mean, Johnny Walker's talking to me right now too, and I've got pain medicine from my accident yesterday.
There's a lot of studies that say something like some sort of like regular cheat days are really good for you.
Yeah.
So what if you
6
could
out of
reverse
7
that
days?
and
Yeah.
do the cheat days as your like normal, and then you have a healthy day in
Yeah,
there?
that's me. Sunday, like when I go to church and I'm worshiping, I'm in that spirit of worship, and I'm like, okay, today, Lord, I'm going to be better.
So I was
And then
doing
I get home and I'm like, here, hell's bells.
completely random topic, but I was training for this Ironman 70.3 recently, and someone was like, "Oh, it looks like you're in really good shape." I was like, "Yeah," and they're like, "What are you doing for it?" And I told them working out. They're like, "Well, what else are you doing?" I was like, "I'm eating a ton of apple fritters," and they're like,
From
"Really?"
Hardee's.
And I'm like, "No, from like Harris Teeter."
Harris Teeter.
And
Okay.
they're
Isn't
like,
it funny that
they're
I
like,
know
"Really?"
there's an apple fritter at Hardee's? Yes.
I did not know that. Maybe I'll go get one on the
Go
way
get
home.
one, yeah.
But I mean, I was working out like 2 to 4 hours a day. I was like, I gotta eat something.
Got a carb up. Yeah, that's awesome.
Oh, cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers. Let's do it.
I've not found a great.
What the hell
apple
are we talking about?
I have
today?
not found a great apple fritter in town though. So Harris Teeter is fine. Apparently, there's this place called Glazed Donuts in Hampton that I need to find, or that I've heard is great. But it's like an hour drive from me to get there, and so I got to find something else to do before that to
You know,
feel
we were
okay
talking about
about it.
Millers and Mennonites. There is a place on 460 as you're going to Lynchburg. And so Jordan's mom and dad are both professors at Liberty University.
Yeah.
My kids went there. I went there, and they didn't like me, and I dropped out. Anyways, that's another story one day. But on the way down 460, there's this little Mennonite donut shop. And I kid you not, like Krispy Kreme is way up there in my book for glazed donuts, but they have this apple fritter and this regular glazed donut. It may be worth us jumping in the car one day, driving up. And they only are open like in the fall, right? Do you know what I'm talking about, Jordan?
No.
It's on the way. It's like outside of Crew.
She went to school there and didn't
And
even
she's
know.
like,
I didn't go to school. I just lived there. But
that's right. She was in South Africa for moons.
Yeah.
But you didn't go to Liberty, did you?
Nope.
Where did you go?
Regent University.
Regent, that's right. Regent.
Well, half my career at Regent.
Yeah.
Regent, the school that wants to be Liberty.
The school of That's exactly right.
Yeah.
funny.
You know what they need? A snow pipe or whatever that thing is.
Oh yeah, the thing at the top of the mountain.
Yes,
The
they got that
snowplex.
mount. They got that Mount Trashmore mount right there. Just
Yeah.
put some snow on that, and everything will be fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll bring in the students. Right? They need you as their marketing director.
I don't think they.
Pat
would like-
Robertson
I
would-
don't think they would like me as their
Yeah,
marketing
so-
director.
You know, I've got to shake it up a little bit.
I think most people, from a marketing perspective, like if someone was to say, "Hey Zach, what are you?" I'm a marketing expert type of thing. Most people market too much like everyone else and don't take enough chances, and they want to be like everyone else.
Yeah.
And I look, I've never really exclusively looked at Regent. So when I had that TV show, they were a partner, and I liked everything that they did from like the show perspective. But I think most businesses are like, oh, I like what that business is doing, and they're my direct competitor. I want to do exactly what they're doing. And I'm like, that's probably the worst strategy ever.
See, that drives me crazy. We're going to have to really talk off camera because I like what you have to say. You're speaking to my marketing spirit here. But in the financial business, guys in my industry, it's me too. we all look the same, we all say the same, we dress the same.
And the general consensus because of Hollywood hates you,
Yeah.
right? So you go to a networking
Right.
event and you're another one of those people that I don't want to talk to. Oh, here's your
okay.
card, whatever.
Yeah, you're going to sell me some investment advisory
Yep.
stuff, some insurance, some annuities. Mm-hmm. I'm like, no, I really would like to help you maximize your wealth. I'm agnostic as to what we use. Let's just make it the best we can. And saying that sounds great, but can you perform? Can you do it? And that's the proof in the pudding and what you've got to prove. But how you market that, how you say that, and I think a lot of business people starting out, and tell me if you agree with this, but as small business owners, we wear a lot of hats. And a lot of times I'll see organizations go, this is my sales and marketing team. And I go, that's unfortunate. What do you mean? Well, salespeople usually are horrible marketers. And marketers are usually horrible salespeople. Let's take those two pieces and try to focus on what this person does really well. If they do marketing well, reward them for doing that well, because they're going to bring people to your salespeople that should be able to verify what your marketing said you do. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
Well, not to mention that there's usually different forms of a potential client in there, right? So there's the person who's ready to buy right now. So that's probably who the salesperson is for. And then there's a marketing department who should probably be leading that person who you want to be through some sort of, sales funnel.
The sales.
Right? Into
Nurture campaign.
something that will convince them at some point to then go talk to that salesperson.
Yeah.
Or honestly, if the marketing's doing well, you probably don't need that salesperson. In this specific case, you've done a good enough job throughout the process to lead them towards now I'm ready to buy this thing.
Yeah.
So I think most companies, I tend to agree with what you're saying. I think most companies don't look at it as the sales department is probably prospecting and figuring out who really wants to buy this thing now, and then there's a marketing department for everyone else.
So like in my specific business, we do a lot of permanent life insurance. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you say those three words, permanent life insurance, most people are like, back away, run away. It runs people away if you're marketing that way. Mm-hmm. So it's how you say it and how you present that to a consumer to say, let's see if we can marry up whether or not this financial product is a good fit for what it is you're telling me you want. Mm-hmm. And how you message that, super important, or maybe the anomaly.
Yeah, I mean, I would say even figure out who that target customer is, figure out where they hang out, and then do something in that sandbox.
Yeah. Well, they're very different. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, everybody has an estate. Mm-hmm. So at some point in time, everybody's going to need
No doubt.
some life insurance. We talk about, well, let's not focus on the need. What is it you want? What if you don't want any? Then wouldn't you want to know that as the salesperson as soon as possible?
Why do you think they don't want it?
Preconceived notions that it's a ripoff, or it's not good for them, or they don't want to talk about dying. Right? That's
I guess.
Even though we all know we're born to die, but when you start having those conversations, especially with young people, I've seen that where they've been like, I don't know that I really want any of that. It's not crypto, it's not stocks, it's not bonds, and
Crypto.
yeah, we can have some fun with crypto. I like crypto. I've got some crypto.
I have very little crypto, and it's a customer paid me in crypto a few years ago.
Did it really?
It wasn't
awesome.
It wasn't that exciting. It was exciting for a few months, and then it's not that much money.
Well, probably right
Not
now.
right
it's
now.
not that
But
much.
I look at that as like one of those forever savings
What
accounts.
coin did they pay you in?
I think Litecoin, and then it went up, and then I sold it in half, or I cut it in half, and then bought Bitcoin.
Okay.
So at one point I had like 5 or 6 X of that.
Mind saying where you bought Bitcoin at?
Like Coinbase, is that what you're saying?
No, Bitcoin. That when you bought Bitcoin.
Oh,
where
it's
you-
like very little amount of money, like 300. I didn't buy it, so I was given $300 for something, and then I think the highest it ever got to like $2,000.
That's awesome. What a man. That's great.
I mean, it's at like $700 now. But again, I look at that, and I think most of these things should be like like the rotisserie oven, like you just
Yeah.
have it and like
Right.
occasionally look at that thing.
I have a 1,000,000,007,000,000 coin of Shiba Inu.
Okay. That sounds exciting.
Yeah,
Is it like a penny stock?
Yeah, it's like well, not even a penny. It hasn't made. If it makes it to a penny, I'm in, as they would say, high cotton.
Well, it's like that 10% risk, right? Like it's like investing in a startup.
Yeah, couple grand in that, and if that hits, great. If it doesn't, I would have spent a couple grand doing something stupid like buying a one wheel, and almost killing myself yesterday.
Sounds like you've actually done that.
I have. I've got. Well, that's why I'm wearing long sleeves. I usually try to wear like a Marine shirt or Rangers or something to support our guys. Yeah, my hamburger arms today, and not being able to do something like that just is not good. So long sleeves.
Where'd you
today.
grow up?
Durham, North Carolina.
Okay. Interesting. So
My father was a Baptist minister. We moved to Chesapeake when I was 14. And I went to Greenbrier Christian out on Kimsville Road. And then went to Liberty. Thought I was going to be an NFL football player.
what position?
I played outside linebacker and fullback in high school.
How tall are you?
6 foot.
Huh.
Yeah. Well, I was 6 foot then. Now, after yesterday, I'm probably like 5 and
Did your family have military background?
yeah.
So did you grow up like always like super American proud type of thing?
I think so. For me, and I just talked about this in the previous podcast,
Oh, you
but for me, it was football didn't work out. I came home and told my dad I didn't want to stay in school, college dropout.
And that's when you went to the Marines.
And he said, well, you have 2 weeks to figure out what you're going to do. And so I went whining to my mom and said, is Dad serious? She goes, he's serious. So the following Sunday, I went to church. And I went to church to check out chicks, not to listen to a message.
You're 18.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And in walks my old high school buddy who graduated 3 years ahead of me. His name was Alan Fellers. And he's in his dress blues, all tricked out, looking sharp, in great shape. I'm like, Alan, what are you doing? He goes, United States Marine Corps is what I'm doing. And he was home on, I think, 10 days recruiting duty.
Huh.
And the Marine Corps, that's some of the best marketing right there. The Marine Corps sends, if you want to do it, the Marine Corps, I think they still do this program. You graduate from boot camp, you graduate from your A school or your technical school, whatever they're training you to do. I was an infantry guy. And when you graduate, if you want to go home for 10 days, you have to work. But you go home, you bring your dress blues, and you go to your local recruiter where you were recruited out of. And you ride around with that recruiter and get your other buddies to enlist.
Interesting.
It's a great program. And I got meritoriously promoted because I came back home and did that and got a couple guys to enlist.
The reason I brought this up is so my grandfather, Marines, my other grandfather was Army growing up. And I always felt like American proud, like be excited about America, hearing the Star Spangled Banner during like a swim meet. So I was a big swimmer growing up. Like hearing that was exciting. But then like never really appreciated it until I moved here,
Right.
and really understood like, oh wow. And maybe it's just because I wasn't older, or I wasn't old enough to really get it. But I was like, okay, well now I realize that a lot of people go. So when I worked in news, I would go to like the Navy bases and see homecomings and all that stuff. And I was like, all right, well, these people are putting in a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting to then live here and to see that. But there's a brand around that where like it's, if you really dissect it and peel back the onion, it's like, well, they've put in a lot of work to try and get people to think about this.
Yeah.
And that's something that's,
time.
what I love to do as a marketing guy is to not always come up. I mean, I love being a pioneer, but I like to look at like other brands, so things that like convince me to either buy from them or something, and be like, wow, I wonder how I could do something like that for myself, my customers, or just talk about. And so it's interesting how that concept of the military really became so popular, and people really got behind something like that.
Well, what's interesting is so my wife, she's a military brat. Her father, her biological father, 31-year Air Force fighter pilot, Vietnam hero. He flew thuds, which those planes, every time they go out on a mission, they're getting shot up and literally coming back to base with holes in their plane. That was him. And my wife grew up in that house until her parents divorced when she was, I think, 9. But she really didn't realize how much of a hero her dad was. And I'm not just throwing that word out there. I mean, he flew hundreds of sorties, missions in Vietnam, low-level bombing flights, bullets going through his airplane. And she saw a series on Netflix called, I think it was called Thuds.
That's the bullet?
Yeah. No, Thuds is these jets that are flying over these low bombing raids in Vietnam. I think it was F-111s or F. Anyways, he's going to be pissed at me for not remembering the jet. But at any rate, sorry, Grandpa Wayne.
Yeah, say you're sorry.
Yeah. So as he's, running these missions, and I'm talking to, because I was a Marine, and he wanted me to go be a PJ or forward combat guy in the Air Force, which is their special operations unit. And Kathleen was like, honey, I've seen more places in the world. You have. It's time for you to get out. But I would have conversations with her dad about being an Air Force fighter pilot in Vietnam. She never, as a kid, and he never really made that big of a deal about it. Until we go to he was retired from NASA, second career, and she hears a gentleman read his accolades. And I look over at her, and she's weeping.
And it was 15 minutes long.
Yeah. And she's like, I didn't know my dad was a hero. And I think that happens a lot. And if you grow up like your grandfather, I think, was a Marine.
Yeah.
To them, it was just like, hey, it's dude.
Another day at the office.
It's what we did. And that's why I always want to toast those folks, is because I know what it was like. And I know people. I mean, I did 10 years. One of my close friends has done 31 years with the teams. 17 out here at Dev Group. But you see the guy on the street, I mean, you can kind of look at him and tell he's a badass, but he is a gentle giant. I mean, he's just a good human being, opens doors for people. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
I remember the first time I ever met like a Navy SEAL who's at one of my events, Start Norfolk, in 2011. And just by what happenstance, he comes to the event. So the idea is build a company in a weekend competition. It was very early on in my business career here, and it did pretty well, and people got really excited, and I think it was something that helped accelerate the growth. And his name's Sean Evangelista. I probably shouldn't say his name, but whatever. He's fine. You know him?
Yeah, he's out in Idaho now.
He is, yeah. So 31 Seconds Out is something that he started. So awesome dude. And so I'm talking to him at the event.
He's a beast, bro.
And so he's one of those guys that you walk down the street and you're like, yep, probably a SEAL. You're like, uh-huh. And so I'm talking to him at this event. I have no idea who he is. And he's like, I was sitting around. I was like, how'd you find out about this? And he's like, I sitting around at the campfire. I was deployed or something like that. And I was like, I'm getting out in a year, and I have no idea what the F I'm going to do. And all my buddies are like that. And we're like, we don't really want to go into civilian world. And he's like, well, I'm just going to start a company. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so he came to my event, pitched something, or just attended something like that. And then the next year he got second place at the next event. We invested some cash into his business. That didn't come to the fruition that he wanted to. He put in a decent amount of money into it. But then that next thing, I believe, was 31 Seconds Out, which is where he took something that was personal to him. So drawings of military-related situations. And
a mission set, a mission.
Yeah, built a business around that. And again, that's kind of the idea of okay, the person is probably there. Maybe the timing isn't there for that concept, but that person is probably going to be the one to do it. And so what's interesting is that's happened with several of these companies over the trajectory of the last 10 years. There was a company that we also invested in, I think our second round of Hatch. So we used to invest in some companies, little money, like $10,000 to $20,000 checks. And this one company was, again, these people, these kids, they were young, they were like 20 years old. You could tell they were going to do something. And so they had created a company called RoboSent, which is like a political, we all hate to get the political ad phone calls and stuff. And so they figured out a way to get those calls for really cheap for the politician. And so we invested in that. They were doing well. But that's not what they loved and wanted to do. This is early on in the marijuana world, right?
Nice.
So they start the first marijuana social network. It's basically super frowned upon here. It's called Mass Roots. Super frowned upon. Like
Sweet.
So I guess the idea is we can't post this picture on Facebook and our grandma's going to see it or our mom's going to see it. So how can we create this concept? Yeah. So what's interesting is this is going on around the same time we've invested in the RoboSent company. And I go to my investors and I'm like, hey, do we want to do this? And they were like, no, we're not interested in this thing. Also, the bank that they're banking with, because, banking and pot are,
taboo.
I know. They're like, oh, there's a lot more money in this bank account now. Do you know what kind of company this is? We think it's this. And I was like, I have no idea. Because I really, at that point, I didn't know a lot about it. And so they had to stop banking with that company. And they moved to Denver. And it's not taboo there. It's fine there.
Pot capital. Yeah.
And they are the first marijuana-based company, I guess, to hit the NASDAQ, I think, and became like a $100 million business.
Wow.
And so
So Hatch was an early adopter.
Well, we should have been an early investor in that company had that been okay. So that was an $8 million loss, which sucks. But again, they were the right people. And so you could tell that they were going to do something. It's just, can you now? Or are you going to have to keep cycling through some cash, 10 cycles of businesses to figure out which one of those is going to work?
Isn't it interesting? And I want to get into your book here in a few minutes and give you a little shout out on what you've wrote. And I'm sure these stories are talked about. But while you were saying that, I was thinking back to the dot-com bubble burst, 2000 to 2003. And what really came to mind is something that happens at my house every day. My wife loves Amazon and online shopping. She despises going to the grocery store. Mm-hmm. And the best thing that ever happened was grocery delivery. But I remember Priceline.com tried to be in the grocery delivery, and then there was another grocery delivery business, grocerysomething.com, that failed miserably. I mean, early on, all the dot-coms, if you just threw a dart at a dot-com stock, it was going to go through the roof. But the timing of that in 2000, consumers weren't ready for it. Mm-hmm. COVID and all the bad things that have happened with COVID, I think it really has now proven that so much of what we do in life can be surrounded around the family unit. And I think it's been beautiful in a lot of ways where, it's one of those things that people either run into the fire or run away from the fire. And I think what's happened in COVID is that a lot of people have just embraced family again, which I'm a big proponent of. And they've embraced, what can we do around home? Because we got all these delivery services that will now bring everything to us at home. So home becomes the paradise again. It's not about going out. And so that's why the economy has held strong, in my opinion, is that people put money back into the family unit. Now, I think in some ways people got stir crazy with each other. And, I think we'll see, some divorce spike where like, I've had enough of being at home with you.
I think it's the option that people need, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always said, even from the beginning of this, it's 7 years of an acceleration of what was going to happen. So, what you're going to see in 2027 is what you saw in 2020 because of COVID.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember early on, I would tell people like, oh, you should be happy that this happened now and not in like 1995. Like you can communicate with people.
Right.
Like you can pull out your phone and like be like, yo, what's up?
I was trying to get clients to do Zoom calls with me
before and
3 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're like, Kenny, we'd rather come meet with you face to face. And I go, we can be face to face.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, and I get it. I love community. I love being like podcasts and Zoom. I hate it. But doing this, I love
There's
it.
convenience at some aspect of that
Yeah.
that I think matters.
But I think it's a trust bridge. Like in my business, once they trust, if they're new, they want to come in and meet with me face to face.
But think about the bell curve aspect of this, right? So like timing, Priceline wanted to do it, Grocery.com wanted to do it. It's not that was a bad idea. It's a spectacular idea. It's can you get enough people and kind of like your Q1 of a bell curve to champion that thing enough, and are they the right enough people to then get those next people in, right? And so those early adopters are super important. And if you can't get them, it's not that idea is great. It isn't great. It is. It's just you have to get those people to pull them in. And so it's interesting the aspect of grocery delivery, right? Because I still think there's some flaws in that, but obviously it works, and it's obviously a multi-billion-dollar business. And so I think you're going to start to see warehouse-like situations like a Walmart, like a Kroger that have these big facilities, and you're going to see less and less of the space. So the most expensive thing at these places is what they do for the consumer, right? So look at an Aldi, right? So you go into an Aldi, and it's not as nice as a Walmart. Now someone would say, that's ridiculous. Of course it's cleaner and nicer than a Walmart. What I'm saying is they'll just throw out a bunch of boxes and say, pick it and go, right? So to have some sort of worker go in there and make that thing clean is where their most expensive dollars are going, right? So if you can make the online aspect of that more warehouse-like, and as a consumer, all you're going to have is someone show up, pick up, and go, or it's delivered, you can save a ton of money on that. And so either Walmart makes a ton of money on that, or it gets cheaper for us, which is probably not going to happen, but
at least early on.
Right. And so that's where I see that stuff
that.
going, right? So we're not going to be going to Walmart the same way anymore, right? That window I think is closed, and you're going to see those people like go to Walmart at 7 a.m. and see how many workers are in there doing that serving of putting the stuff out there. It's a ton.
Go to Walmart at like midnight.
Well,
there's a subculture.
I don't think that's open anymore. The whole people of Walmart.com thing is done. Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Holy
It's great.
cow.
Every time I go to Walmart, I try to get on that website.
Yeah. That's awesome.
This never works. I don't know.
Yeah.
One day.
So a little bit of what you're talking about, I was sitting here while you were explaining that. There was a book written a few years ago, and I'm blanking on it. But they took a quote from Bill Gates where he said, the most important thing that ever happened for me in business were three things: timing, timing, and timing, which is why he said he was one of the richest men in the world. And then he went on to say a lot had to do with location. And people were like, well, what do you mean, Bill? He's like, well, think about Silicon Valley. He goes, I grew up, in the Northwest. And this is where a lot of people in their garages, from Steve Jobs building a computer with tinkering around with his dad's stuff in his garage, to him showing up on the doorstep of HP, Hewlett Packard, and going, I want a job. And he literally was that guy in his book where Steve Jobs talked about showing up to Hewlett Packard and with no shoes on, kind of a hippie outfit, and was like, I want to work here, and I want to be a developer here. And they were like, are you homeless?
But he did that enough that he got in.
Enough that he actually got in, made an impression.
But most people are going to show up looking the exact same way. Like, think about a resume, right? So I haven't applied to a job in a long time, but assuming it's very similar. You have a cover letter that says, oh, I'm an amazing person. You have a resume that says the exact same thing as the next 1,000 people, right? And so when you're receiving that as a HR manager, every single one of them looks the same. Yeah. So how are you going to stand out, right? And so maybe not look, homeless. I don't know, but maybe you look homeless in that situation, and something good could happen. I remember I really grasped that concept working in TV news, where people who wanted a job, same thing. They would send in this resume tape or DVD or something like that. But the ones who really wanted to be seen would send something else with it. So in the newsroom, there's a lot of people who work, and they would send the tape with like a cookie cake or like 10 pizzas, right? So it's like, I really want to work at that TV station. I'm going to spend $150 on pizzas, because if I send my resume and my resume tape with them and a box of pizzas, I know that someone is going to say, hey, where is this from? Oh, it's from this person wanting to get a job at my thing, at my business. Oh, I'm going to look at them a little bit more than just Joe Schmo who's just sending me the tape.
Yeah. Do you know what I did as a marketing thing once? And this lady, Pamela Yellen, I got this idea from her. She's a marketing guru on the West Coast. She's like, Kenny, if you want to stand out, you got to do something different. Kind of that purple cow.
Yeah.
We should put that up on the website as well, the purple cow, which is a great book about exactly what you're talking about.
Yep.
So Pamela said, all right, so you want to reach business owners, and you're sending these nice letters out, and you don't think anybody's opening those letters because nobody's calling you. So she says, well, give me a catchphrase. Give me something that you say. And I said, well, I like to think about it this way, that it's too bad that they're working with their current broker because he's probably sending them up the creek without a paddle. And she said, why don't you send them a paddle?
Yeah.
So literally I'd send out these tubes from FedEx with a paddle in it, and I'd wrap the letter around it. 100% open.
Mm-hmm.
And I got one really good estate planning case out of that. But guess what I stopped doing?
Sending the paddles?
Sending paddles.
Yeah.
So I've thought about that over the years. I'm like, why did I stop doing that? And it's, success has secrets, and sometimes we just won't listen to the secrets it's telling us. It's because we're thinking, well,
we need that new shiny thing.
yeah, I got all the noise out here. Man, that hurt.
But you found something that worked.
Yeah.
Oh, it hurt.
But yeah, that hurt, and that hurt lifting my arm. But the secret, sometimes we just ignore, that small silent whisper.
Because we'd rather watch an hour video of someone telling us, try this other thing, instead of actually doing that work. So, no, I 100% agree.
Or the me too of, oh, well, they're doing it, so I should be doing it like they're doing it, the copycat. So it reminded me today, maybe I need to send some paddles out again. And it'd be fun.
To me, the key in marketing is figuring out what works, even if it's a little bit, and then seeing, okay, can I put a little bit more towards this? I'm sending 10 paddles a month, okay? Is this starting to see some sort of trajectory on it? Am I seeing anything working with this? Maybe. Okay, well, let me send out a little bit more. Maybe tweak it a little bit, right? And so you start to see that, and then instead of actually allowing that to have some sort of frequency, we go, I'm going to do something else. I remember I had a client who was like, we had $100,000 extra dollars to spend. What should we spend it on? And I said, I think we should spend it on what's working. And they were like, we don't want to do that. And I was like, okay, but we know what works in your business. We should spend that money on something that we already know what the multiplier is.
Why do you think business owners do that to themselves? And me included. I'm guilty of saying that.
Because I think...
What are we thinking?
I don't... Well, I think a lot of times it's probably because you don't have an outside set of eyes looking at something, so you get so tied to it.
Yeah.
I think that can help. But then also, it's the shiny pot of the... whatever the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is. It's like, I think I want that.
What's working for one person's organization doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for
Probably not in your industry.
Yeah.
Right? That's why I like to look at other industries, say, how did this work? Is there something there that I could do?
Yeah.
But usually not in the same industry, right? And so a lot of people do the exact same thing. They wonder why it doesn't work, but it works for someone else. They're like, because it worked for that company.
So let's take that now to the book you wrote, Anomaly. So I'll show you guys Zach's book here. And in true transparency, Jordan had this on my desk today. I have not read it yet.
There's no words in there, so don't worry.
Oh, God, it is. It's blank. No, not really. There's dig deep.
It's a picture book. It's a coloring book.
That's what I need.
I think there's like 4
but
pictures.
As a Marine, I eat crayons, so I probably would never color the picture. So
I haven't read this in a long time. Probably never will again. So we're on the same page.
And what's interesting about it, you probably just don't need it because it's there, it's in you, it's part of you. You wrote this for what purpose?
Let's think. What do I want to say for that answer? So I wrote it because I had done a bunch of... I'd answer a very similar question over and over and over again, which is basically, I want my business to grow faster, quicker, cheaper. And I'd answered that on stage and podcast, in every other platform and media form other than a book.
Yeah.
I hate writing. And so I said, how about we write a book on that
You're
thing?
a journalism major and you hate writing.
Yes. I feel like I can talk better than I can write. And at the same time, when I was thinking about writing this book, I had this guy on my podcast. His name's Jason Vitug. He had just written a book. And he said something along the lines of the word authority, or the word author is a derivative of the word authority. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And he was talking about how people give you more credibility because you wrote a book. And I was like, I mean, I have a lot of credibility already. I don't believe that. And it was interesting because it actually, like, there's people who I could get meetings with, do whatever with, but there was all these other people who the book, for whatever reason, was the thing that got them out. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so I wrote it as an opportunity for people to just see a different way to grow their business.
So did you self-publish?
So no, there's a publisher, and that's a whole ordeal in itself.
What was that experience like? Because I have a book and I self-published mine.
Yeah, I don't think it's like losing control, but it's about losing control. And so, like, you give them more money. They control pricing. They control dates of stuff going out. But I do think that they taught me a lot of the stuff that when I write book 2 and other things that I can learn from that. Self-publishing 10 years ago, probably not the same as it is today. It's a lot easier to throw something up on KDP or some of these other things and have a book.
Yeah, I use CreateSpace, which is owned by Amazon.
Yeah.
And it worked well for me. But it was that mindset that, if you're an authority on a few topics, write about it. And it's like your business card versus what the business card used to be.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things on that too. So I was getting out of my physical office space in downtown Norfolk. This allowed me to have
the one on Granby?
Yeah.
Granby, okay.
Which after the last year, obviously, if I'd had a ton of events, ton of stuff in office, not having an office to worry about like that, I'm glad I got out when I did, I guess, right? And so that kind of had having Anomaly was like a very thick line saying, okay, it's not Hatch Zack anymore. It's just Zack Miller, Anomaly Zack. And so that helped with this. And then the publisher is in New York City. And so being able to say a New York City publishing house, I think those two things were very important to have this. But if I was to self-publish again, and I would self-publish again, or I would self-publish, I think there's just a lot of lessons learned. And you can save a ton of money by doing it on your own.
Yeah.
And you have a lot more control. And I think
Did you do the whole game to try to get books in the hands of organizations where you could have, hey, I got 5,000 copies out to this organization, 5,000 out to that, to try to get a, New York bestseller?
Not that specific strategy, no. But my strategy is it takes as much effort to sell one book as it does, 200 books.
Yeah.
And so if you can sell someone a speaking gig plus 200 books, you'll be in a lot better position. And so I think that's this is deal flow to do that, right? So you say, hey, organization, I saw that you are looking for speakers. I'd love to come talk on XYZ topic. And this is my speaking fee, and this is how many books I would want you to buy. And so that's the in on that aspect. I think naively I thought I could get onto a New York Times bestseller list, but ultimately that's just a headline, right? And so the only thing that would be of real good purpose for me on that is to say New York Times bestseller, best-selling author, something like that.
Yeah.
But that's not there, so I can't say that. And there's other things I can use.
What I put it in my book?
Just
I
good.
put future bestseller.
That's good. I mean, I should say things like that.
Audacious statement,
I mean, I think you could say that people aren't looking that close to understand that. You could say, I think I write this in the book. Again, I haven't read in like 17 years. I think there's something along the lines of, how many times do you think Beyoncé has been nominated for a Grammy?
Nominated. I have some folks in the music business, so you guys fact check me on this. You can actually find this. I'm going to take a guess. She's probably been nominated 80 times.
Okay, I think the number's over 100. Right? How many times has she won?
8.
Okay, so it's a lot lower, right? It's like 15 or something like that, right?
Okay.
So you can say 15-time Grammy winning artist, or you can say something like 110-time nominated Grammy artist, right? And so the key here is, how can I get the biggest number possible on that, right? So 80, 100, whatever the number is, and then associate it with the brand bigger than what you already are, or one that has a lot of clout.
Yeah.
Right? So she can use, and maybe that's a bad case because she's won, right? But imagine
Yeah.
there's someone out there that's been nominated 20 times and never won.
Yeah.
You could still sell the 20 nominations.
Right.
So I write some fake story in here about a head coach who becomes a head coach after 30 years of coaching experience. A lot of people would say, oh, well, he's a rookie head coach. Well, that makes him look really weak. Or you can say he has 30 plus years of experience, and you can sell to that. And by the way, he's under the coaching tree of, Joe Gibbs from the Washington Redskins. Also, when a football team changes their name, the random thought, right?
Yeah.
I've asked a couple of friends this. So the Washington Redskins have 3 Super Bowls, right? Do they
You're going
win
to get canceled for saying Redskins.
No, I'm getting to the point of this. Did the Washington football team win those Super Bowls, or did the Washington Redskins do that? So at what point does that change? Is it only from 2020 on, or did the Redskins win that thing? It's in the book. I mean, that's how it was when it was there, right? And so it's an honest question, I think, is like, okay, when you change your name, so like the Washington Bullets from before, if they had won a national or an NBA title, did the Bullets win it, or was it the Washington Wizards?
Right. Good point.
I don't know.
I think they should change their name back to the Bullets, by the way, because
There you go.
they're not wizards there.
I think the Washington football team is random enough that it actually is a good kind of football team name.
maybe that's what the Redskins become now is the Bullets. They just take the NBA name.
There was a thought going out that Amazon dude Jeff Bezos was buying Amazon or the Redskins, the football team, whatever it is, and it was going to be called the Washington Flash. Or no, excuse me, Washington Prime.
Oh God.
But keeping that brand on there.
Yeah. Okay. Smiley face, right?
But the brand
That's
matters in that. I mean, so like you
Okay.
have this name, it's been there forever. Now you have to figure out, okay, how did I do this before? I mean, it's a tough thing to build a brand that has any kind of notoriety, good or bad.
Yeah.
And then to have to start from zero. I mean, I don't think people are giving enough credit to how hard it's going to be to get Washington whatever name.
So what's interesting
get
is
there.
your last name Miller. There's another Miller who wrote a book called Story, who's a great
Donald Miller?
Donald Miller
Uh-huh.
out of Washington. So all you Millers, like you're either in TV, movie, the arts.
There's 2 professional football players too. So if you usually type my name, they spell their name Zach, not Zack like I do.
Yeah.
And so you're competing against that, right? So then for me, I try and put everything, obviously it's on the book, but like all of like my social handles website, everything is ZachMillerSays.com to try and have that out there. I think it's a tough thing that one of those is going to win. You just got to figure out which one of those is it.
Yeah. So
I guess Miller is a good name.
it is. It's a great name. I can't say. I mean, Miller House Coffee, right there. I mean,
It's just everywhere.
it's everywhere.
Miller Lite.
That's right. Miller Heating and Oil. And
I
it's a
can't
service
think.
station. Well, what else you got?
Zach Miller says. We'll just
Zack
end with
Miller
that.
says. That's the home run right there.
Yeah.
So, how long did it take you to write this book?
I think it took me physically writing, like pen to paper style, not pen to paper, but like typing it, 60 days.
Wow.
Now, there was about 2 or 3 years of like me. It's based off of a webinar that I'd done hundreds of times. And so I knew the content.
Okay.
I think it took me about 30 days to get that out. And then it took me you would read it and be like, we need to add more case studies, basically. And so I had some case studies from the podcast that I had been doing. And so I took them from that. And that was more of an after idea. And then I would read again and be like, okay, there's still stuff missing. So then I would have to interview other people. And so that was probably that next 30 days. So about 60 days to write it. And then, so that was probably February of 18, I think, 18. And then I was done by the end of March. And then I probably had first copies in early October. So 5 months of editing. And the editing process is disastrous. I mean, it's just
they bleed all over your.
Yeah, I don't think people I jokingly say this. Like when I got my first copy back, it just became in red ink.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what to do with this. I literally just accept it all at one point. I was like, I don't want to do this. It was like 30,000 edits. I'm like, yeah, I'm good. Like I paid you. I trust you. Like, why don't you just we're good.
Yeah, I had a young lady actually who worked for Virginia Pilot edit my book. Her name's Lydia Wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
She was the editor. And the first time I got it back.
She doesn't, I don't think she lives here anymore. I think she lives in D.C.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
She moved out of the area some time ago. And this is 2012
Yeah.
or 13 when I launched my book. But, and I don't know if you talk about this in your book, but as an entrepreneur, it was like failing forward for me. Because I wrote this book and had this literacy course that I'd created in my mind, and I started recording it. I started having people in my executive space in downtown Norfolk in the Wells Fargo building, which is where when I relaunched my financial business. I had my office there, and I was paying video guys to help me get content put together. And the idea was launch the book, and I would have it on KDP or have it on Kindle, and there would be an opportunity for people who would read this book would hit a hyperlink and go to my education course. I am still developing that education course 8 years later.
It's never went out?
We haven't launched. It never got to the point where I loved it, where I was like, this is great, and I want to put this in front of consumers. Because I was such a hard critic on myself of the content that it was getting ready to get ready, which I think kills a lot of business, especially in the financial business. Getting ready to get ready as well. I got to have this T-shirt here, this book here, this coffee cup here. No, let's do this. Let's put the T-shirt here.
So why do you think this show is okay for you to push out, but not the other content that you never 8 years
Because
later?
I think in my mind's eye, in a show, there's so much forgiveness to a podcast. And I've seen podcasts that started out very humble. And I think people have become more adept or have adapted to small beginnings.
Do you pay Netflix every month?
Not anymore.
Okay. Do you pay Amazon Prime?
Yes.
And things go wrong there?
Yeah,
Right. So do you have any do you have any kind of streaming network at all?
I do. Yeah,
Right. And
like,
is there ever
Google.
issues
Yeah.
with the content that you watch there and you don't like it?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Head trash. Yeah, the gray matter.
I mean, I would just think, what is 8 times 365 and how many dollars associated with that have you lost because you have that?
Zach,
Right.
Stop. I get it, man. Thanks for crushing me here. No, I need it. Right. You're exactly right.
I get it. Like I think a lot of people
I don't
worry
need any
about
more
those
pain.
things
I'm
too
hurting
much.
enough this morning.
Well,
But
someone
it is.
asked, so one of the trailers for this book is me interviewing myself. If you've never seen it, it's hilarious. It's like ZackMillerSays.com/anomaly.
Let's put a link to that on the.
So it's journalism Zach full in a suit with like a lot shorter hair over, and then it's like this Zach with a beard being interviewed about the book. And that concept literally came together in 24 hours. And I had a videographer, Chris Lane, and we had a date shot, we had a location shot, we had to get everything done. And so like I had to get it done.
We're way over an hour now, aren't we?
That's
cool.
fine.
Let's keep going.
Okay.
Do you need a pee or anything?
No, I'm good.
All right.
When you do Ironman, you just got to go on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry
Golden
for
shower yourself.
Well, it's more your floor at this point.
Go knock yourself out.
Thanks.
There's no telling what's on the floor.
Great. So someone asked me, like, what do you think about, how did that video come about? Are you happy with it? And I was like, look, it's fine. But had I had a little bit more time to actually think about it, write it, or produce it in some sort of way, I would have written it a little differently. But that's 3 years later looking back at that and being like, this is what I could have critiqued. It did what it needed to do at the time to get it done, and it wasn't that much money that it screwed up, right? And so I think you should just press record and then upload.
Yeah.
Big fan of that. I'll pull out the knife.
Yeah.
now.
You may have convinced me that, and it may change my mindset on something we're doing. I don't want to say the developer's name here, but I've got a developer helping me. We were talking off camera about that. Because I don't think I can because I signed an NDA. It's not because I don't want to tell people. It's just I want to,
You do you.
I am flopping around over here. But anyways, so
Did you have another shot before?
you want to do it? We're doing another hour. We might as well do another shot, right?
Why did I say that?
Jordan, can you help? I can't lift the bottle.
Yeah. Do you really want another?
Yeah, we'll do another shot. Zach said it,
Oh God.
so we'll do it.
Have you ever done a
Recording.
second shot before?
I don't think so.
Okay, I'll do it because we've never done a second shot. That's
There you
why
go.
I'll do it.
Anomaly. So
Oh Lord.
just fill it all the way up. No, I'm just kidding.
We do have meetings this afternoon.
You guys have meetings. This is with the web developer, which, by the way, we're redoing our website because I hate my website.
Uh huh. Does it not work?
It's me too. It's old and
But you heard my question.
yeah.
Does it work?
No,
What doesn't work about it?
it's not bringing prospects.
Oh.
But is that a website issue or is that a?
Content.
So if I was to work with you, right? So
Yeah.
this is what I like. People are like, oh, I
You
want
might
this
be
thing.
seeing me getting hired or hiring Zach right on air.
We'll do two more shots, right?
So we're gonna do Chris Voss, never split the difference. We're gonna negotiate price here too.
That's fine. My point is like people go, I need this new shiny thing.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, what's not working with that thing? You say it's the website. But then as I hear over here, I hear a different thing.
Let's
right?
drink. While we're
Cheers.
talking. Cheers. This is to marketing.
Marketing.
And military marketing.
There we go. Oh God.
That's delicious.
We get home, my wife's gonna be like, have you been drinking like what is this, whiskey?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't call Johnny Walker whiskey.
Blended Scotch whiskey.
Scotch.
Hey, I'm just reading the label.
Yeah. I got it.
Sorry.
So
So I would say why,
hammering.
like I think you have to hammer down and figure out why are you like, what do you actually think you need this website for, or whatever it is. Oh well, it's not driving traffic. Well, the website isn't what's going to be driving traffic. It's something before that drives the traffic. So are you doing something else that could be actually driving traffic to your website so that you can actually figure out if your website is actually the problem that you think it is or not?
So here's what's interesting. I do these workshops.
Uh-huh.
And it's a tax workshop, and I love doing them, love talking to audiences. And where we think we're different is we're getting folks who are retirees or pre-retirees or business owners to focus on one of the greatest eroding factors of their wealth, which is taxation. Mm-hmm. It's not the market. It's inflation could be a big, but tax and inflation can kind of work together. So that's for a whole nother financial podcast. But what's interesting is that when we do these workshops and folks will either come to back before COVID, pre-COVID, we'd do them at libraries and they were free, cheap, and we'd get a lot of folks there. We do them at restaurants now, so we have to entice people with, hey, we'll give you a free meal.
Uh-huh.
Here's the catch. We do want to have a conversation with you. So I try to practice radical transparency, radical truth.
Which, if you really think about that, not digging on that at all.
Please dig.
You're going to spend money to acquire a customer in some sort of way. So if you can figure out that, every client costs me $250, figure out how to spend that money however you want to entice them to get that conversation, to then put them down. Whether that's a meal, whether that's something else, whether that's a Facebook ad, whatever it might be. You know that your price per acquisition per customer is $250, for example, right? So spend that however you're going to have to get to it, and then if you can get down to $200, $150. Or just realize that the $250 is fine, and it's making enough money later on that it doesn't matter. So, I think people overthink that aspect of it too.
I could be accused of that, overthinking it. So for sure.
Oh, I only spend $100 to acquire this customer who's going to give me $50,000 over a lifespan.
Right.
That seems like bad math to me.
Yeah. I'm pretty good at math, but yeah, the reasoning sometimes gets in.
I get the reasoning.
Yeah.
So you do these events. They bring in people.
They bring in people. What I've noticed is that when I go look at my analytics on my website traffic goes way up at those moments because people are going home after the event and going, who the hell is Kenny Porter?
Yeah.
And let's check it out. So I see activity on the website go up. But what's interesting is I think they get to the website and they see me too. Instead of, hey, this guy was really good in the event.
Oh, I see.
Now it's kind of like maybe a letdown, in my opinion, when they get to the website. That it's like, well.
Is the event marketing to you?
So a couple of different events. One event is we have to use this institution. It's called Retirement U. We have to use their content, their service. I'm not the front center guy. Until they get there, then they go, oh, it's Kenny Porter. And then some of our other marketing events are specific to me.
Yeah.
You know, branded Kenneth Porter and Company, that kind of stuff. Did I answer your question?
Is the event marketing to get to that thing that you want to sell?
Yes, and
then they go to your website, and then there's no other communication?
about that, yeah. So that's where we're changing the site now to speak more to tax being the greatest, the commonality of whether you're just getting started or you're uber wealthy. The common villain is tax. And so what we're trying to do is help people understand, well, you know, here's the villain to the eroder of your wealth. How can we make you the hero in understanding how to mitigate or minimize that eroding factor in your
And
wealth?
the stuff that you're going to put on your website, you have proven? Or is it?
That's great questions. Well, I'll let you look at it.
Well, I just think that a lot of people then put together a website, and then they're like, oh, this is going to fix everything. And it's basically the bowl of spaghetti that they haven't proven yet.
Yeah.
So don't sign something in Sharpie, put it on a website as your main focal point until you have something proven. And so it sounds like from this example of events, there's a layer missing in this that people are going to the website, but you could drive them to whatever you want them to, or you could control that in however you want to. And that, to me, from what I'm hearing, is what's missing, not going and spending all this money on a new website. Because my guess is you already have all the stuff that you need. It just needs to be massaged in a way that will help you out.
I'll show you both today off camera.
Yeah.
If you got a couple minutes, I'll let you look at
Sure.
it. What's fortunate for me in this is that a close friend of mine is a web dev guy.
Sure.
So it's cheap, but expensive. Cheap in that it's my buddy.
Yeah.
Expensive in that it's taken way longer than what it should have.
Well,
to
hopefully he
launch.
doesn't listen to this.
No,
You just called
I
him.
bust his balls all the time. I won't say his name because I don't want people to think because it's, you know, it's kind of like the friends and family when you're doing things with your friends and your family that should get the best attention.
But I think
It
sometimes
becomes the
because
shoe
we spend a
collar.
lot of money on certain stuff, we expect it to return a different way. And it's like, you don't have that thing proven yet. So you're going to have to take the bowl of spaghetti, throw it against the wall, and that website is going to be that.
Yeah.
And so that's where I see that going.
So I can't complain so much because I have that 4% rule you were talking about earlier.
Sure.
I've reached some real goals that for folks in my industry.
It sounds like the website's trying to be some sort of automation for you so that you can bring in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a completely different game.
Yeah, and we suck at that. So we're trying to get better. So maybe this is a godsend with you coming on the podcast today, and then we were like, oh, you can actually help us. So
We'll see.
we'll see what happens.
And maybe we'll get Johnny to.
Yeah. Well, when you're really drunk, it doesn't matter anyway. You're just like, oh, everything's great.
When do you stop drinking the Blue Label?
Usually, I only do one shot. So you're an anomaly.
There you go. But so you would have
I'm
one.
even struggling saying that word.
You
now
would
after
only
2
drink.
shots.
So because it's. I mean, I don't think people usually get inebriated off of one shot, 2 shots, right? So, at what point do you realize this is a nice bottle? I don't want to keep drinking this because I'm not getting the same effect. Where
I don't think that's ever happened to me with Blue Label.
I mean, if you drank the whole bottle, you would feel that.
Right. And then I'd have to buy another bottle.
Or if it was good enough, and you had enough viewers, they would send the bottles.
Me another bottle. Yeah, they would. You're going to help me do that, right?
I think it would be an interesting thing. Sponsorships are an interesting thing to me, and I think there is a price for everything, and I think you.
So why do you think like Joe Rogan, who's like my podcast here? I really like listening to Joe stuff. You know, the Rogan Experience. Do you listen to his podcast? Or watch?
I will listen to a clip a month because
Really?
something will get me.
Yeah, like
I
when
don't.
travel.
I don't consume a lot of media content in that kind of way.
I have to drive to Nashville a lot, so I do some business out there, and then my son's at the 101st. And so it's a 10-hour trip,
So there's a lot of stuff to listen to. And he's
I'll
got
listen-
7-hour Yeah.
I'll listen to 3 podcasts. That gets me 9 hours, and then maybe the last hour.
Well, apparently him moving to Spotify is hurt, I guess, the viewers. That's what they say. Who knows? Why do I think he's made it? I mean, I think he got in at the right time, stuck with it, and has enough. He's got interesting guests. He's got a good video team that's pulling out the right clips, and he's talking about things that are, let's be honest, controversial enough that will get people to see it. And so some combination of those things is helping the algorithms.
I like MMA. I like comedy, and then I like his
that's
UFO.
That's okay. So UFO is probably the weird thing in that, but like if you were to just search like MMA content, that's probably not enough to get it right. So you could start an MMA podcast, and that's not specific enough to move the needle. Okay. You would have to have a conversation in there about like something in MMA that's oddball enough to start getting those things to move up.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people miss like keywords and things like that. It's like you gotta figure out where that controversial clickbaity type of thing, right? So like we live in Virginia Beach, right? So so for example, how would this happen? Shooting at Virginia Beach, so-and-so murdered in Virginia Beach, right? You live in Virginia Beach. How many people live in Virginia Beach? 500,000 people?
Yeah.
So then you because of the way they generalized that, you as a Virginia Beach resident feel, oh my God, that's me. Even if it's 25 miles away from where you live.
Big city.
So it makes you hooked to that and want to research it more and feel potentially that you are at risk for something, even though that thing is, dozens of miles away. And so you have to figure out that thing.
It's like Riot at the oceanfront. And I was talking to buddies.
It hooks you to want to be like, oh, well, I live there. I want to see what happened.
Yeah.
Well, you live 40 minutes away from there. That has nothing to do with you. Not that thing isn't good or bad, whatever. It's just that is not going to hook. That's not what the media is looking for. And one of the main reasons I ever got out of the media, the traditional media and television, was because if something wasn't bad one day, they would have this damn bell and they would ring it and they would call it like the breaking news bell, basically saying that they wanted something bad to happen to someone. I'm like, what the hell? This is the most ridiculous thing possible. Like, you're basically wanting harm on someone.
Yeah.
Everything that pretty much everything that the news covers is an anomaly. Think about that. It has very little to do with you, yet they've convinced you that it does.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all being mind.
It went out here.
Yeah.
And that's just me understanding because I've worked in that world and I work in media to say, this is what's happening. You're being led by a headline.
Yeah.
And I get it.
I remember my friend, a guy named Dave Hummel, local musician, mixer engineer here. His dad used to be the director of Middle Eastern television at CBN. Right, Christian Broadcast Network.
Yep.
And I remember him saying to us at breakfast once, he goes, what's interesting is we have Middle Eastern television. We have this little studio right on the border. There's the Johnny.
Take a nap after this.
Yeah, right. Jeez. No, it'll sting my arms from all the road rash. And the Johnny's making the road rash feel better, so. Anyways, the point I'm getting to is he would say that outside of the studio, he would see national networks go manipulate young Palestinian boys to say, hey, look, why don't you grab those rocks and start throwing them at those soldiers, those Israeli soldiers.
Huh.
And what they would do then is that they would either give them a few bucks, horse trade with them somehow, and they'd get them throwing some rocks.
Have video of it.
Have video of it, and then they would say that there was a skirmish between the Israeli soldiers and the Palestinian boys on the border. And I've heard that a number of times over the years from guys who work for three-letter agencies to even our media outlets, that a lot of times if news is slow, we'll make some news. And it actually gets me, and we're going to pick on our local folks here. I remember, I think it was WVEC. We'll call them out, and I've got a client who works there, so I'm sorry, but radical transparency. I remember the weather person standing in the street, like in Waders, talking about how bad the flooding was. And as the pan of the shot goes by, like 4 or 5 people were walking behind them in like 2 inches of water. But the point in where they were standing, it looked like it was
Sure.
3 feet of water.
Yeah, it's just context is missing.
Yeah.
The full context. And I think
Pan, tilt, zoom. I mean, that matters. in media, right?
it's not that what they're saying is incorrect. They are absolutely telling a true story. It's just
You're not on the payroll of WVEC anymore, are you?
I'm not.
Okay.
But I don't think it's them to worry about. I think this is any media
It's-
thing,
yeah, at
right? So
large.
we're looking to tell a story. The story is better when you can tell something that's interesting. And so whether it's a local agency or a local media market station, or whether it be a big guy, it's so when I worked at Channel 3, right? And so they used to always have us go to this thing that they would come up with. The name was Lake Olney. So I think Olney is a road in Norfolk that always flooded.
Yeah.
I mean, always flooded.
Sewell's
But
Point.
then
I know what you're
literally, a block over or a block the other way, it was bone dry. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
And so they would put you in, and I would literally be in 5-6 feet of water, and I'm 6'2", 6'3". So I'm standing there, and then if I was to walk a block over, it's not as bad. Again, it's not that it's fake. It is absolutely a true story, but they are embellishing or not giving the full context of a story to do that. And it makes people go, "Oh my God, that's so bad right there." Yep, but one street over and the other 8 streets around, you can get around. And so it's
Because what they're trying to manipulate is viewers, the who's going to come in and stay on that channel and then hear their advertisers. Is that?
I think
is
they
that
just
it?
want to show a story that will entice people to want to watch and be like, "Oh my God, it's really bad there." When it's like, okay, outsider, full context, Google Maps view of pulling out a little bit, you go, it's not that bad. There's
So
ways
if-
around
if
that.
bad news sells, is I think what you're saying.
I think headlines sell. And I think historically people want to be more negative
Yeah.
on things than positive, right? So Corona in the last year was about stay home, don't go out, do anything. When I think a lot of people could say this story should have been, if you don't get your health in gear, this lung disease is going to absolutely destroy you. When, what is it? It's a lung disease that people who are bad health, which I was, you need to fix that. So you probably should
By
go
the
work
way,
out.
cheers to you too, because I remember
Thanks.
I said to you pre-show, I was like, Zach, I said we've never really officially met, but I remember heavier Zach,
I call him Fat Zach.
fat Zach.
Fat Zach.
That might be a tag you want to put on like your.
The domain is available. My buddy Eric was like, "You should buy that." I'm like, "I don't want to."
Have the before and after. You've got a great story to share.
Thanks. But to me, like the story there wasn't, and I don't understand why health in this kind of way, the positive health aspect isn't, because it is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Yeah.
But the story was never get out and get healthy. It was stay home and don't do anything. When I think looking back at this and even throughout, it was to me, it was like, hey, like this is an opportunity. You better get in really good shape for anyone, not just myself, or bad things are going to happen. And so COVID scared the living crap out of me because, some people in my family are larger. I was larger at that point. I was like, yo, you need to get your act together or you're going to be screwed. And I think you can still be scared and fix that.
And again, this may come back to marketing, I don't know. But why do you think you were comfortable with years of being larger? Am I going to shame you and call you fat?
I just called myself fat. So
why
I
do you think you had years where you were, and Noah cheers to Noah. He's lost
stay 66.
40 pounds? 30. I'm embellishing. 30 pounds.
I think we get comfortable and we just say screw it and we find a way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not like I feel like I was doing what I did from a health perspective in other things, right? So that time that I was putting into that, I was putting into the business. And so I would just be like, screw it, I'm going to do that instead of this other thing. And then when I got rid of the office, it was like, okay, I have to start getting back into better shape. And then that slowly started happening. And then I basically, with COVID, I had no excuse. And it was like, screw it, you just got to do this.
And what did you do? I mean, like, what was your thing that helped you?
So like a few buddies and I had signed up to do an Ironman race. So a
when you were
70.3.
fat, Zach? You signed up to do an Ironman race?
Oh, yeah, I was fat when I did it. Yeah, the first
Holy
time.
cow.
I didn't do very well. But
You finished?
yeah, I finished like second to last place.
That's awesome. But I mean, you were carrying around another human being.
Yeah, probably like
You weren't. I don't want to make it sound like you were that big, but you were.
I'm probably like
You're a big
205 pounds now. I was probably like 280 then.
Were you really?
And the heaviest I've ever seen is like 3 bills.
You made it to 3.
Yeah, it's a
Damn.
nice number.
You rang that bell.
Yeah. I just think that it's a weird thing because it's just like little changes. And
So's your wife. Your wife. There we go with Johnny again. Is she like, hey,
oh God,
that's that? We're gonna embarrass. What's your wife's name?
Megan.
Megan. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take it there, but I mean, I'm sure she's happy that
I think
you really
there
got serious
is
about it.
well, I was probably not that large when I first met her. And so I'm probably more like the guy that she first met back.
She's like, he's back.
He's back. But I think you just have to get in a routine.
You have kids?
We don't. We have a dog.
Okay.
And that's about as wild of a kid I can expect at this point.
Man, just 5 kids, go for it.
Yeah.
That's what I did. And now I have 5
sounds exciting.
grandkids.
I think you just have to, from like a journey of whatever, like I think I either said this here or out there, like the number weight was irrelevant to me.
Yeah.
It was like, I don't want to sit on a scale because there's so much missing context of that number. I mean, you could fluctuate depending on the person, 5 to 20 pounds a day. That could be the one reason why you get on the scale and say, I'm done with this. So just don't look at it for an extended period of time. I think it was like a year I didn't look at it. And then like when I saw it, I was like, oh, I thought the number would have been lower.
Really?
And it wasn't. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
But
and
you built muscle mass, right?
Allegedly.
You're a fit dude now.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so we were doing...
Really happy for you.
Thank you. So we bought a training plan, and we were doing anywhere from like 13 to 18-hour weeks of...
And you say we, who was
Eric, my buddy Eric, Jay, and I all kind of competed in this race. And so we would do... The race is 1.2-mile swim, 56-mile bike, and a half-marathon run. And we would do some form of that basically every single day, and usually 2 to 4 hours of work every single day.
Wow.
But I think people will sit there and say, I don't have that time. I'd probably say that you do.
We have found out through COVID how much time we really have.
I mean,
on our
don't you think
hands.
that's... Never mind, I'm not going to say that.
No, please.
I think some
Let it
people
go.
don't want to go back to work because they don't want to have to go back to this time period of, oh, I actually have to work for that long period of time where I figured out a way how to get away with a lot less working.
I think we're going to look back and go, you know what? The Europeans didn't have it all wrong. So the Europeans, when they're working, they're very hard workers. But like in France, like in Paris, August, if you want to go to Paris and do nothing, go in August because nobody's there.
Because they're working.
They're on vacation.
Got it.
Yeah, the Parisians are like gone. They're like in Nice or Normandy or wherever. But the Europeans take some significant time off. Is that true? Like in South Africa?
They travel
Yeah.
twice a year usually.
And they'll take some serious time off. Man, we are really
European
rolling
countries.
through this. We're gonna have to do another shot. I'm just kidding.
I'm done with the shots.
Tapping out.
Tapped out. Too slow.
Let's do this. Let's bring you back and we'll spend more time on marketing and really talking about what's inside the book. Today was the
I will. Yes,
teaser.
absolutely. But let me say this. Everything we talked about absolutely has a marketing spin to it.
Yeah.
And I think most people don't grasp what they're doing, right? We pick a Netflix show off of a thumbnail, and you'd be absolutely like, if you don't think that
true.
that's marketing, then you've lost your mind.
Yeah.
Every decision that we make is some sort of conscious marketing decision. Oh, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so everything that we talked about, whether or not it was quote unquote marketing or not, absolutely had a marketing spin to it. And we have to live like that if we want to be successful.
So if people want to talk to you, Zach, and figure out if you're a good fit to help them with their marketing, how can they reach you?
ZackMillerSays.com.
Okay.
And everything across the board is that. So at Zack Miller Says everywhere.
Okay. So if we go to askzachmiller.com.
So like the handle.
Oh,
so
at
like
the handle.
Instagram
So,
is
I'm
at
an
Zack.
old man. Yeah, the at sign.
It's okay. We'll teach you.
All right.
So on Facebook, Zack Miller Says, ZACK. Don't spell it wrong. I'm not Zach Miller Says. It's
You're
important.
not the football player.
Not the football player. Yep.
Although you could be if you've lost 3 bills.
Maybe the 3 bills was
come for third
important
time. Yeah.
at that point, though. Depending on the player, I would have.
So was that a marketing plan? Did you plan to get up to 3 bills so you could say, no?
No, I just think that you
100
get there.
pounds.
I think sometimes you don't realize how big you are.
You lost a human being, dude.
That's
is
what people
freaking
say.
awesome.
I mean, I still think like every once in a while, like
I think I've found that human being. So when I was a Marine, I was like 215, 32-inch waist.
well, welcome.
Yeah.
No,
Now I'm like 240, 245. With the skin I lost yesterday, I might be down to 235.
239. Yeah, 5 pounds skin. I think it's a lot easier than people give it credit for if they're willing to do something. And that's in life in general, whatever.
If I would agree with that statement. If we want to buy this book, can we find it on Amazon?
Yeah, Amazon, ZackMillerSays.com/anomaly.
Still there. Okay.
Amazon.
You've piqued my interest. I'm going to read it, and I'm serious. I'll read it. That'll be my homework.
Do you have
10 pages a
have
day.
the one that has pages in it? I can't remember. You do? Damn.
Yeah.
Would have been a lot easier.
Oh, you know what? This one has underline in it. So,
I read it.
oh, Jordan.
What did I write?
Well, I've read part, not all.
You could listen to it. The Audible's pretty funny.
Oh, you have an Audible?
Yeah,
Did you record that?
of course.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think the Audible is probably better.
And the sooner you develop a relationship, the sooner you can convert them into a client, not just a friend. That is the ultimate goal of marketing.
A random page that you got to. How smart is that?
Page 7.
There it goes. You can stop reading the book at page 7, folks.
That's great.
Look, I think you're in the financial world. It's all about compound interest. If you're going to wait 50 years, you're going to have to catch back up.
Don't be afraid to be different. Let me see. Jordan, what else in here?
She only read to
It
page
typically
33.
takes somewhere between 5 to 7 positive interactions to land a qualified client. I mean, I am randomly I swear to you, that's page.
Well, and think about you have those events, and you quit at probably step 3.
Thanks a lot. I'm not a quitter. I'm just slow to learn.
Just going from
I'm a
the story
Marine.
that you told me.
Yeah,
Marines aren't slow.
yeah. We just eat a lot of crayons that kind of slow the process. But
Sounds exciting.
is your grandpa still living?
No, he died a while ago.
Too many crayons?
He had a hell of a handshake.
He'd probably just bust your ass, wouldn't he? Was he a true like jarhead, like grunt? So in the Marines we
I don't
have
know.
do you know what he did in the Marines?
No idea.
Yeah, you need to go back and check that out and see what your granddad did. He's probably like the Marine, like Vietnam era guy. Probably, maybe Korean War.
My mom's dad was in Vietnam, and my dad's dad, I have no idea.
That's one of the things we'll have to talk about next time.
In the
Figure
Marines.
that out.
Yeah, it'll
Family history is important to me. I like that.
I have when he passed, he had so I remember 2 things about him. His ridiculously firm grip, and I was a young kid. I think I was probably 16 when he passed, maybe 17. So it was 20 years ago. And I think he was like 85, so he was pretty old. And then he had this picture of RFK Stadium in DC, and those are the 2. I have that picture actually. So it's like a poster, just like the BlackBox thing. And so I have that on at my house. And so I have that, and then the handshake, and that's about all I remember from him.
Those are great. But
It's
a
hard to
firm
remember as a kid, I
handshake.
guess.
So if somebody gives you the wet willy or the soft floppy handshake, Does that set an impression for you?
I mean, it's different, right?
But I mean, do you go, that's not grandpa's
See,
handshake.
when COVID started, I was all about it because people were like, "Oh, no more handshakes," and I was like, "Cool, Michael Scott from The Office will finally be able to do his bow, and it will work." He just kind of bow to everyone, and it didn't catch
All
on.
right, sir. I just hit my head on the mic.
There you go.
A bow to you. And I've got a T-shirt for you. Actually, I should give this to myself because I feel like I survived the black box today. So this goes to you.
There you go.
And it's large, not extra large.
I think it'll work.
If you want a medium, we can get you
I
to
don't
show
think
off
I'm
your muscles.
I don't think I'm a medium.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Hey, let's do this again. And off camera, seriously, I want to
Yeah,
chat with
let's
you.
chat.
See what we can figure out. Maybe you can get my web developer off his ass. Crickets. Do I have crickets on here? I don't.
No.
Okay. Greg, I'll boo myself. Oh, I said your name. But let's give a round of applause. And the kids love you.
What's the money one?
And then there's Mike. What do you think Mike is? Oh, you can't hear that. Mike Tyson.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's what I was thinking.
He's dropping hydrogen bombs. We used to have Mike Tyson. It was everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the face.
Yep.
And that's been taken down. I can't find it anywhere on the internet.
Really?
Yeah, so it's like that must be a tag and somebody owns that. But
Good for
knows?
Mike
yeah.
or whoever owns
What
that.
what a redemptive story there. That'll be one we'll talk about in the future.
If I can find it, you can't find that at all.
I swear to you probably can, but I have not, and I don't think these guys have been able to find.
It's always interesting when you try to find certain things and you can't.
Yeah, like the audio file with him saying that, and we had it before that we would play it, and then we lost it because we had a real audio guy before.
All right.
Before Noah.
I mean, well, he's different now that he lost 66 pounds or whatever.
That's
40
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like Noah 2.0.
Right. He will get better now that those.
You've seen his
fat cells are
tattoo
shrinking.
already that has his name with 2.0 next to it?
No.
Yeah, it's pretty
He got
great.
that. I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah,
Hey man, thanks for coming today.
it was good.
We enjoyed it. It was a blast. Look, I think you set the record.
I
for
try
the
to be the pioneer.
The
Oh, yeah.
longest podcast
All right.
that we've done. We usually keep them to an hour, and I think we've made. They didn't even bother turning the clock on it again.
They've
so,
been sleeping.
yeah, they're like, what are these guys talking about? But it was about marketing today and entrepreneurship.
There you go.
So
This is where we bow and we're
Yeah.
done.
how'd it got to, Mr. Roboto?
Enjoyed it.
Yep. Have a good one.